Attending your own funeral is an unsettling experience, even more so when the people who orchestrated it are your own family. The thought bounced around my mind as I lined my lips with a deep crimson, the same shade my mother used to call too loud. I stared into the mirror, meeting my own eyes with a kind of defiance, daring the reflection to blink first. They told everyone I was dead, no metaphor, no estranged cut-off scenario, I mean dead, as in they announced my passing, held a memorial, even showed a slideshow, and I wasn't even invited. For 12 years, I had lived in the shadows, quiet, distant, practically invisible. I carved out a life for myself, a good one, but no matter how far I ran, I could always hear their silence following me. It wasn't until last week that I fully understood the scope of their lie. Out of nowhere, a childhood friend messaged me, "Wait, aren't you dead?" At first, I laughed. Then I saw the post, a family photo, my sister's smile, my parents standing proudly behind her, and the comment beneath it, "We miss her every day." She would have been 33 this year. They killed me with their words, buried me in lies, but now, I'm back, and they have no idea what's coming. I clipped my earrings into place, adjusted the fabric of my black dress, and stood tall. Today, the family gathers once again, for joy, for celebration, for the perfect picture, but I'll be in it. The ghost they tried to bury is about to knock on their front door. Some people grow up with warmth in their homes, Sunday dinners, bedtime stories, a mother's gentle touch. I didn't. In my house, love came with conditions, approval was currency, and I was always bankrupt. My mother believed in discipline over affection, worth was measured in silence and obedience. I failed at both. My father? He was a ghost, even when he was physically there, always present, never really seen. And then there was my sister, the golden child, perfect grades, perfect hair, perfect lies. I was everything they didn't want. I asked questions. I spoke up when things felt wrong. I didn't fake smiles when they didn't come naturally. To them, that made me rebellious, disrespectful, shameful. They called me ungrateful for wanting to be heard, unstable for feeling too much, unlovable for simply being myself. By the time I was 16, I learned that silence wasn't just survival, it was the expectation. But even then, I held on to the hope that maybe one day they'd finally see me. Then I met Eli. He was kind, funny in a way that didn't ask for anything in return. He came from a different world, different background, different everything, but with him, I felt seen, valued, alive. When my mother found out, she didn't scream. That would have been too human. She looked me in the eyes and said coldly, "You're not one of us anymore." And then came the ultimatum, choose us or him. I asked if I could choose myself. That was the final betrayal. On my 18th birthday, I was given a gift, a black trash bag with my clothes, a bus ticket to nowhere, and a goodbye that never came. No hugs, no tears, just the sound of the front door closing behind me. It didn't even lock. I remember sitting at the curb, clutching that garbage bag, wondering if I had ever really existed to them at all. No one chased after me, no one called, not then, not ever. I wasn't just unwanted, I was erased. What they didn't know was that the girl they discarded would grow into a woman they'd one day regret creating. Nearly a decade had passed since I last heard their voices, and I was fine with that. No birthdays, no holidays, no guilt trips, pretending the past didn't happen. I had made peace with the silence until it spoke again. It was a typical Tuesday afternoon, just like any other. I was sipping coffee in my apartment when a Facebook notification pinged. A name from my past, someone I hadn't seen since high school. The message was brief, almost hesitant. "Hey, is this really you? I thought you were dead." My hands froze. I read the message 3 times, trying to make sense of it. Dead? At first, I thought maybe it was a joke or some kind of mix-up, so I responded carefully, "Yeah, it's me. Why would you think that?" Her reply came quickly. "My parents told everyone. They said I died in a car accident, not long after I left home. They even shared the story at a church gathering a few years back." My mother, the same woman who couldn't meet my eyes when she cast me out, stood before a crowd, voice trembling, eyes misted, delivering a tearful testimony about losing her daughter to the perils of rebellion. "Sometimes when you turn your back on family, the world punishes you," she wept, for the daughter she had buried in words, not in the ground. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. There had been no accident, no obituary, no grave, just a lie, dressed up in holiness, fed to a room of believers. I asked my old friend for proof. She sent me a photo someone had posted from the event. A slideshow lit the church wall, candles flickered on a table, and there it was, a framed picture of me at 16. braces still on, hope still in my eyes. They hadn't just cut me off or gone silent. They'd declared me dead, to friends, to extended family, even to God. They held a funeral in everything but name, and no one questioned it. No one checked in. Not one person thought, that's too clean, too convenient. I wasn't missing. I wasn't dead. I was just inconvenient. So they rewrote the story without me, tore out my chapter and tossed it like a bad draft. But here's the thing about ghosts, they don't stay buried forever. After that lie, I disappeared, not out of shame, but for survival. They wanted me dead? Fine. I let that version of me die, but the woman who rose from her ashes was forged in fire. 4 years. I kept my head down and my heart armored. I had no help, no family, no safety net. I worked 3 jobs, mornings in a diner, evenings in a bookstore, and cleaning offices in between. I lived in borrowed rooms, fed myself on instant noodles and ambition, but through every shift, every dollar saved, every sleepless exam, I carried one sentence like a flame. They said I was dead. That became my fuel. I put myself through school, graduated with honors, and turned a freelance hustle into a 6-figure interior design business. Clients trusted me with their homes because I had built my own from scraps, brick by blistered brick. No congratulations, no applause, just grit, scars, and one silent promise: if I ever go back, it won't be to beg, it'll be to show them what they lost. For a while, that was enough. Success filled the empty space where love had once tried to live, but then the silence began to whisper again. Another message came, this time from someone still in touch with my family. They sent me a link to a Facebook page, my family's. There they were, smiling wide beneath a banner that read, 40th anniversary celebration, all family welcome. All family, except me. Dozens of comments, dozens of photos, people tagging my sister, reminiscing about the good old days, sharing old stories, cousins, aunts, uncles, all accounted for, and not a single mention of me, not even a lie. They hadn't just buried me, they'd erased me, as if I was never born. I stared at the screen for a long time, then I closed the laptop. You wanted a ghost? Fine, but I'll give you a haunting you'll never forget. It was time to return, not for closure, for truth. The day was almost too perfect, blue skies, sunshine, a breeze that smelled like fresh grass and old memories. The house looked the same, white fence, rose bushes, that familiar cold grip on my chest as I stepped out of the car. Laughter drifted from the backyard, champagne clinked, hymns played faintly through a speaker. Relatives I hadn't seen in over a decade huddled close, telling stories from which I'd been surgically removed. They looked so content, so certain that the past had stayed dead. But it hadn't. I didn't knock. I didn't need to. I walked through the gate like I belonged, heels sharp against the pavement, each step a countdown. A few faces turned my way, curious, puzzled. They didn't recognize me, not yet, not until Aunt Ruth's wine glass slipped from her hand and shattered. The silence hit instantly, heads turned, and then I saw her, my sister, mid-laugh, mouth still open in joy that hadn't caught up to the moment yet. Her eyes met mine, and froze. Like she was seeing a ghost. Is this some kind of sick joke? She asked, her voice thin and brittle. I stepped forward, head high, voice steady. No joke, I said, I'm very much alive. The music stopped, or maybe someone turned it off. I couldn't tell. The only thing I felt was the thick, suffocating weight of every unspoken thing in that yard. I scanned the crowd, old friends, distant cousins, people who had once prayed for my soul at a memorial that never should have happened. Some looked away, some cried, and then I saw them, my parents, frozen, pale. My father's hand clenched the edge of the cake table like it was the only thing anchoring him to the earth. They weren't ready for this. But I was. My mother reached for the cross around her neck, the one she always clutched when telling a lie. I took another step forward. Relax, I said, voice even. I didn't come to ruin your party. I came to remind you that you can't bury someone who's still breathing. The silence cracked, and through it, the truth started to rise. There I stood, in the heart of their perfect little celebration, surrounded by people who had once mourned me like I was gone, like I'd been laid to rest. And yet, here I was, not just alive, but real in a way no ghost could ever be. I reached into my bag and pulled out a manila folder. It was intentional, no email, no Instagram post, just paper, solid, undeniable. Before you add new lies on top of the old ones, I said, let's clear the air. I held up the first page, a printed obituary, my name, my birthdate, a fake death, and a paragraph dressed up in church-appropriate grief. She left us too soon, troubled but beloved. Gasps rippled through the room. Someone whispered a prayer. My mother looked like she might faint. They had handed this out at church, grief as theater, fiction wrapped in sanctimony. I flipped the page, then another, photos, documents, me holding keys to my first apartment, crossing the stage in a graduation gown, cutting the ribbon on my design studio, passport stamps, business licenses, receipts of a life lived fully, year after year, while they mourned a ghost. I turned to my sister. She hadn't moved, her champagne flute trembled in her grip. And you, I said, my voice sharp and cold, you sold my things. Her mouth opened, closed, no words. You cleaned out my room, told everyone I left nothing behind. You took our grandmother's ring, mine, and wore it like it belonged to you. You didn't just steal my things, you stole my silence, my name. She had no defense, there was none to offer. I faced the crowd, eyes scanning the familiar and the complicit. All of you stood by, you heard the lies, you repeated them, you believed them, because it was easier than asking the truth. But here I am, you can't bury the truth forever. The room fractured, tears fell, some people turned away, some stormed out. My aunt yelled something about grace, a cousin paced, angry no one had told him. The polished family veneer shattered right there under the weight of everything they tried to hide. And I stood in the center of it all, calm, grounded, alive. I didn't need to stay, the truth had already done its job. I had set a match to a house soaked in secrets, and now it burned, not in anger, but in reckoning. I turned and walked out. No one stopped me. The same people who once whispered about my lost soul now stood paralyzed in the smoke of their own lies. I walked away, not a ghost, but something far stronger. In the driveway, I heard footsteps, soft, hesitant. A few cousins followed me, wide-eyed. I'm sorry, one said, we didn't know. I nodded, not in forgiveness, just acknowledgement. Not everyone wielded the knife, some just watched me bleed. Then I saw her, a little girl, no more than 8, clinging to her mother's dress. She looked up at me like I was a warrior from a fairy tale, alive, fierce, unbroken. She didn't speak, she didn't have to, her eyes said everything. I got in the car and looked back at the house one last time. They thought cutting me off would end the story, but what they buried came back stronger. 6 months have passed, the party is a memory, but the truth still echoes. I told my story, on my podcast, in my words, and people listened. Strangers reached out, other ghosts, other daughters and sons erased by the people meant to love them. I'm not their ghost anymore, I'm the storm they never saw coming. And I'm just getting started. The final image, me on a balcony at dawn, city stretching out before me, the wind in my hair, sun on my skin, and nothing left to hide from, no shadows, no silence, just me, seen, whole, and very much alive.